On January 26, 2020, a small headline from a famous media outlet sent shockwaves worldwide when it announced that a helicopter carrying a famous athlete had met with an accident. Within a few minutes, social media buzzed with news of the crash. This is the story of a tragic event that led to a horrific accident, changing the lives of the athlete and their family forever. Thank you. On a cold, gray Sunday morning in the winter of 2020, a veteran helicopter pilot stood in the Atlantic Aviation Terminal at John Wayne International Airport in Orange County, California. He looked at his flight planning app and the news was not good. The app showed a blanket of clouds covering the city with patchy haze underneath. This meant that large parts of the region were not suitable for flying, a significant problem for a helicopter pilot. The pilot's employer, OC Helicopters, had contracted their services to fly a renowned athlete and 7 of their companions to Camarillo, a coastal airport located 80 miles to the northwest. For the pilot, it was more than just a job, it was an opportunity to raise the profile of himself and his company. Island Express Helicopters was a small organization with only 6 helicopters and as many pilots. Most of their business involved transporting passengers to and from Long Beach and Catalina Island, a tourist destination 20 miles off the coast. However, custom charter flights for high-net-worth individuals such as the athlete were much more lucrative. The athlete was a valued client of the company. According to a former pilot, the athlete's protection gave the company a certain luster. Keeping them happy was a priority, and getting them to their destination safely and on time was the pilot's first priority. On the morning of January 26, 2020, the athlete boarded a Sikorsky S-76 Billion, a twin-engine aircraft considered one of the safest in the world. However, the company responsible for the flight was only licensed to fly under visual flight regulations, meaning the pilot had to be able to see the ground at all times. The owner of OC Helicopters had arrived at the terminal to help with boarding. The pilot showed the owner the weather map, which was colored red, indicating conditions were too bad to fly the direct route to Camarillo over the coast. But the pilot had a plan. He proposed an alternative route that would take them longer but would take them safely inland and east of downtown LA. The safety of the flight was assured by an analysis tool to determine flight risk, an electronic checklist with 69 items that provided a number of points indicating the risk factor. A score higher than 45 would require the pilot to consult management before taking off, but since the athlete had to move on, the pilot skipped this step and hit the submit button. With that, all the athlete and company had to do was arrive. The athlete's car arrived a little late, along with a group of travelers from a sports academy. The athlete had recently retired from their professional career and took a special interest in their child's athletic development. They had formed a team with themselves as coach and recruited a team of girls from Orange County to play with their child. Accompanying them were other players and family members, as well as an assistant coach. The team was heading to Thousand Oaks for a travel league basketball tournament. The night before, the athlete's personal assistant had called OC Helicopters to reschedule the departure time from 9:45 a.m. to 9 a.m. so the athlete could check out earlier in the morning. The group was dressed in identical black tracksuits featuring a logo in white. Team Mamba was ready for takeoff. The athlete was running a little behind schedule, but that wasn't unusual. As soon as they climbed out of the car, the pilot returned to the cockpit, and the owner escorted the passengers to the Sikorsky helicopter. The interior of the helicopter was spacious, outfitted with polished mahogany veneer and gold-colored accents, upholstered in two-tone leather with bench seats. The fuselage tilted forward and the aircraft came off the ground. The 2 turbines roared louder as they started up, and the thumping of the rotor became louder. For enthusiasts, helicopters are the epitome of freedom. They are noisy and expensive but can take off and land almost anywhere. The athlete's favorite spot was the window seat on the left facing forward. On a clear day, the pilot would have been able to see all the way to the mountains, but today, visibility was limited by the haze that covered the horizon. The city below was a patchwork of white and gray punctuated by tiny green slivers of parks and golf courses. As the helicopter flew north, landmarks emerged like islands in a foggy sea. The pilot could make out the airfield at Los Alamitos, the Coyote Creek Flood Control Channel, and the looping interchanges of the 605. Even the Union Pacific Rail Yard in East LA was visible in the haze. Flying in Los Angeles was a complex puzzle. Understanding the airspace and its various rules was essential. Los Angeles airspace is among the busiest in the world with commercial and private jets and even a jetpack carrier. But the most dangerous hazard in flying here is inadvertently flying into instrument meteorological conditions (IMC). Simply speaking, it means getting abruptly stuck in bad weather conditions. This phenomenon has caused numerous fatal accidents. It can be especially deadly for helicopter pilots. To prevent such a fate, the Federal Aviation Administration introduced strict rules and required pilots to take courses to avoid IMC. As the Sikorsky flew away from downtown Los Angeles, the passengers were amazed at the sights they were passing. Dodger Stadium and the Los Angeles River zipped by under them. As the helicopter moved northward, ahead lay the looming Santa Monica Mountains, a vast wall of green stretching eastward from Malibu to Beverly Hills. Although the peaks were lost in the low clouds, the pilot knew there was a way through a 4-mile gap near the Lazoo. Beyond this lay the San Fernando Valley and the back door to Camarillo. As the passengers flew past the Silver Lake Reservoir, they were entering uncontrolled airspace, an area not monitored by an air traffic controller. But beyond the mouth of the mountains was Burbank Airport, which was under strict surveillance. If they wanted to enter it, they had to get permission from the control tower. The pilot requested permission from the tower by radio, but the response was not positive. The tower refused them permission based on low visibility and the fact that a SkyWest jet was about to land nearby. The pilot, however, had a solution. He requested special visual flight rules permission to fly through the airspace, even though conditions were below minimum. The catch was that the tower could only give permission if there were no other aircraft in the airspace at the time. The pilot then began flying the helicopter in circles at just 400 feet above Glendale homes. After 11 minutes of circling, the pilot was finally given permission to enter Burbank airspace. He was eager to get to Camarillo, his final destination, but due to departing traffic in that direction, he was forced to take a detour around the San Fernando Valley. This increased the delay. But the pilot was not worried. What did worry him was the thick layer of clouds that had been haunting him since Orange County. It had given him plenty of room before, but soon he would have to cross Calabasas Pass. The pilot did not know if the clouds would remain at the same height, yet he still had light ahead of him. If he could get past the top of the pass, he would make it. The pilot was motivated to carry out his assignments and took pride in doing good work for the athlete and their family. Despite the risk of delay, the pilot was determined to get the passengers to Thousand Oaks. He had a couple of options if the pass was blocked: return to Van Nuys or land and wait for the afternoon sun to burn away the fog. This helicopter pacing in the sky was also witnessed by a few hikers on the ground. A hiker who was waiting in the parking lot for her friend to arrive at the Juan Bautista de Anza East Trailhead narrated seeing a wayward plane. She saw a long white helicopter fly low over and then disappear into the low-hanging cloud cover. The hiker watched in awe as the helicopter seemed to vanish into the clouds. In the cockpit, the pilot had accidentally flown into IMC and now faced the challenge of getting back to safety. He withdrew the controls and started climbing, hoping to find a hole in the clouds to descend through. The pilot radioed into the new controller on the frequency, saying he was just west of Van Nuys and began to climb in search of clearer air. The pilot felt adrenaline rush through his veins as he pushed the helicopter up into the clouds. He hadn't expected